Hello, everyone. We are here to talk about hiding in the familiar, steganography, and vulnerabilities in popular archive formats. My name is Mario Vuksan, and I'm here with Tomas Pericin. We are founders of Reversing Labs, a company that is working on file analysis and unpacking frameworks. And we have, let me raise this up. We have presented at last Black Hat open source project called Titan Engine that has become a really popular tool for file analysis. So we have been since working on some interesting technology and have in the process discovered some vulnerabilities in popular archive formats like zip, rar, gzip, cab, and 7-zip. And are here joined with Brian Carney, who is CEO of world's leading digital forensics company, Access Data, that has helped us a lot, with putting together this research. So just to move forward on this, our goals today is to just give you really brief introduction to steganography as it relates to archives, then to give you some ideas on how we could obtain malformations inside of different file formats, and talk about their steganographic implications as well as vulnerabilities that are a natural byproduct. After that, we will move on to demonstrating some quick and dirty hex editing and how to create your own file formats by modifying the very standard stuff. And we will finish with a freeware tool that's going to be available today, which we call Nix Engine, which has been specifically designed to detect malformations in standard archive formats, and then also to detect all the vulnerabilities that we will be talking today. So our principal topic is steganography. So what that is, many of you know that. Just simply getting to the basic verbiage definition, it is the art and science of writing hidden messages in such a way that no one, apart from the sender and intended recipient, suspects the existence of the message. It's really a form of security through obscurity. It's a concept that's been around for a long time. We want to talk about all its ancient and historic predecessors, but really when it comes to digital stuff, it comes to this. Take one image. In this case, we will remove some bits of the color map. The result will be a black image. We will change the brightness by 85%, and then we will get a hidden message or the image that's being buried into it. So when we're talking about steganography, it's really images. It's been historically audio, has been more recently video, but today we will really focus on archives or ways we can bury really big payloads into standard things. Steganography, or shorter for, I think we are, is this the next slide or the one before? It is the next slide. All right. Just, I thought we had another slide before that. Oh, we are missing one slide. All right. Doesn't matter. Anyhow, so when it comes to steganography, there is legitimate use and illegitimate use for steganography. And stego is the word that forensics community uses for the steganographic use when looking for the so-called contraband. But steganography is also a feature of watermarking, DRM, CAP for signing movies, or more recently for embedding watermarked information inside of the medical images. And still, people talk about steganography principally for messages hiding text within the text, in images, media files. And the reason for proliferation of this is that there are over 600 different tools available today to allow you to embed material with different sorts of algorithms. Many of these things have been open source, and as such, there has been proliferation of commissioned private tools, really focused on total obscurity in embedding information, principally to evade detection that in today's world is done in really two different ways. Either you try to inventory all the possible algorithms and are looking for artifacts inside of images or media files, or you're just looking for the presence of the tools that do encryption, decryption of the data, meaning you're looking for hashes of these tools. So, as such, I'd like to invite Brian to tell you about, how does this look like in real life, today?
Thanks, Brian. So, interestingly enough, we do quite a bit of work not on identifying tools, but opening up the payload or the results of Stego's files. But as part of this this project, working with the Reversing Labs team, I set out to try to find some good stories about steganography. And interestingly enough, I really couldn't find any good stories about it because we had magically gotten files at times at which we needed to look at. But it could be due to the fact that it's really not that prevalent in the wild. I don't totally believe that that's true, but it is obviously a possibility. It could be that analysts are not really looking, so they never find it, right? It's like there's so many other things. You look at a hard drive, it's got 500,000, 1 million items on there. You see a bitmap or a WAV file. What are the chances? It could be that most media-based approaches have many weaknesses. So the big thing is that when you start shoving a lot of data in some of the traditional Stego carrier files, they start to get a little bit messy. So like the images get fuzzier, the audio gets more garbled, and whatnot. So it's not a good means if you're really trying to take a fair amount of data outside of little bits and pieces and stuff like that. And that right now, the best method to identify Stego is to find the tools based off of hashes. End of story. It's pretty much sort of what they do. There's a few different hash databases out there and a few different tools and stuff like that. But right now, sort of the best method to identify Stego on a machine is to see if there's presence of a Stego tool. If there's presence of a Stego tool, there's a possibility that there's some Stego payload or there was some potential information that was Stego. So, or it could be that steganography is just so effective that nobody really knows. So new paradigms for forensic, really from an investigative perspective. Obviously, we talked about the traditional steganography is thought of just embedding data in media files, audio, JPEG, bitmap, GIFs, and stuff like that. Again, things get a little bit messy as you start to increase the payload. So if you're really going to go through the effort of taking stuff, you kind of want to probably take a bunch of stuff with you. So this really, the session is really about a new paradigm in steganography, which gets used a lot. But really there will be a shift away from the media files probably to more of the archive files, zip, cab, 7-zip, like the rest of the team is talking about. So within these archive files, why it's relevant is because you can start putting more data in there. Once you put data in these archives, you can still get stuff out. So you're like, oh, it's fine. The archive's good. So it's sort of, you don't really know unless you really start to look into these different archive files. And there's also other approaches. There's discussion about a Stego file system recently, which is basically a file system and which sort of looks like a TrueCrypt, where you basically open it up with a regular password, and then, because in the UK they recently passed a law talking about you have to give up your password. So if that's the case, they would say, give me your password, you'd give them your password, it would open up, there'd be benign files, but inside that archive or that file system is a whole other set of things. So that was called the Stego file system. And then I also just read about another approach where you can take a CD file system, the CDFS like file system, with the CD, and you can just jam data into the CD. But when you go to read it, it looks like a regular play and stuff like that, but you need to know to look outside of the sort of normal bounds. So investigating Stego in archives. So why this is really relevant from an investigative perspective is, one, it's easier to hide larger payloads in plain sight. I think the most relevant thing is it's not easy to identify using existing methods. So all the existing methods are like blind anomaly-based approach, looking for things that aren't the signatures, image analysis using image filters, audio analyzers, and whatnot. So those are all very much media-based approach. And then